from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Friday to you. Welcome to the program. We're live, we're national. 833, I don't know, what is it? 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. People probably think that's shtick. I swear to you, I just draw blanks on that number. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys, hoping you'll join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Most people don't have work tomorrow, so I'd love to know what you think on just about anything, including what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about Elon Musk tonight. We're going to talk about the importance of mental health, and we're also going to talk about the growth of AI, the explosive growth of AI and what it means in so many different ways. And of course, I want to give you some news here because there's lots going on right now. There's a small plane that has crashed. Again, it's being reported as a small plane, but, I learned from 9/11 that they also reported that as a small plane. Multiple homes are on fire in Philadelphia, and we've got a report on this. Listen to this.
We heard from officials this plane took off. They believe it was a medical plane that was heading to Missouri, takes off on a normal flight path. They said the weather was okay. Within 30 seconds, the thing's on fire. A small plane crashing there, coming right down, we're told, onto a shopping mall. Some of the witnesses are saying this plane came right down. This is about 3 miles away from the airport. One of the reports I was reading, though, that I thought was interesting is this guy says he's sitting at his home in Mayfair when he heard what he said was a loud bang and his entire house started shaking. So that's how powerful this thing was. We say it's a small aircraft, but it's still an aircraft, and it was possibly full of fuel because it had just taken off. He said it felt like an earthquake. He goes and checks his security camera footage, wondering what's going on out there in Philly. He says it looked like a missile coming down, a large explosion.
Well, there you have it. It looked like a missile coming down. There's no reports of any fatalities as of yet. At least I haven't seen any, or any casualties, any injuries, anything. But as we get more information on that, I'll let you know what's going on. And I want to also let you know about this other story that I saw here. And this came out last night, and it was something I wanted to learn a little bit more about. Excuse me. This group of trans cult people. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, but the New York Post has something on this, and we have a little audio that I want you to hear on this, and then I'll give you the scoop. Oh, we don't. We don't have audio. Forgive me. And this this group is called the Zizian Vegan Trans Cult, and they're somehow related to the shooting death of a Border Patrol agent on the Canadian border on the U.S. side. Very interesting stuff right here. So this happened around January 20th. Federal law enforcement was surveilling a German national named Felix Ophelia Buchholz and a student from the University of Washington named Teresa Milo Consuelo Youngblood. And they were at a motel in Lyndonville, Vermont. And this is how the whole thing ultimately goes down. So it's a convoluted story here. But when law enforcement visited them, this pair of people, this couple, they claimed to be looking at the property in the area and promptly checking out of the motel on January 14th. Then on Inauguration Day, Border Patrol agent David Mallon stopped their car in Coventry, Vermont. Youngblood allegedly shot at Mayland, who was killed, and the border agents returned fire, killing Buchholz, or Bocholt. I don't know. Bauckholt. Bocholt. Youngblood, and that's not Youngblood, that's Youngblut, Youngblood, is in custody. So now the authorities are saying that the guns used by Youngblood and Bocholt are owned by a person of interest in other murders and connected to a mysterious cult of transgender quote-unquote geniuses who follow a trans leader named Jack LaSota, also known by the alias Ziz. Baukholt was a biological male who identified as trans and used feminine pronouns. He was an award-winning youth math genius from Freiburg, Germany, who later graduated from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. In 2021, he was hired as a quantitative trader at Tower Research, and that's in New York. It's believed that Baukholt was in the U.S. on an H-1B visa. The Department of Justice says he was armed in the car and tried to aim his firearm before being shot dead. The woman, Youngblood, who's accused of firing the surprise shots that killed the Air Force veteran, the Border Patrol officer, was injured in the return fire. She is a biological female who identifies as trans and lists her pronouns as Z, Zem, and Zers. At least that's what she does on social media. Youngblood, or Miss Youngblood, was a University of Washington student studying computer science. Youngblood graduated from the prestigious and woke North Seattle private institution, and it's called Lakeside School. And guess who else went there? Bill Gates. These people are cranking out geniuses. Youngblood's family had reported her missing to Seattle police back in May of 2024. Her family said she was in a controlling relationship and cut off all contact. According to the police report, that's the latest that they've got. Her social media account on Blue Sky shows that she followed some Antifa-aligned far-left accounts. In November of 24, she filed a marriage application with a 22-year-old Lakeside alumnus named Maximilian Bentley Snyder. Man, these people have the most interesting names. So now last week, Snyder, who is a computer science whiz himself from a wealthy Seattle family, he was arrested in Vallejo, California, for the murder of an elderly key witness that was set to testify in an upcoming attempted murder trial against alleged members of this trans extremist group. Right? It's hard to keep up with this story. Now, the arrest has revealed that previously hidden and close associations between Youngblood, Baukholt, and this cult are now linked to all four of these killings. So this cult is known as the Ziz cult. Jack LaSota, a.k.a. Ziz, and they call themselves Zizans, or Zizans. I'm not sure the pronunciation on that. But they are a cult of highly educated trans vegan rationalists. Not making it up. You would think this is The Onion. The transgender leader of the group, who's posted about transhumanism and other topics. Some followers say LaSota is dead, but that seems to be a plot to avoid authorities. LaSota used the name Andrea Phelps. Wow. And again, I'm going to tweet this out just so that you guys can see this at Rich Valdez with an S on X. Because I got to tell you, seeing's believing. And reading this story will open your eyes. This is a wild story. So we'll be tapping into that story as we move forward and getting your reaction to this trans vegan cult of computer science wizards that are killing people, including law enforcement and witnesses. We'll keep you up to speed on this small aircraft that went down in Philly. There's some Ring video on a house, and it's like a ball of fire, and then it blows up big. Wow. It's amazing to see this stuff. What a crazy week for aviation. Anyway, I also want to get into a little Elon Musk. A good friend of the program, Dennis Neal, has a book on the genius of Elon Musk, and he's going to break it down for us when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company till midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas. If your station's not carrying the coveted third hour of the program, open phones across America, make sure you get at those program directors and get them to take the show. But I want to play a clip for you because it's Elon Musk. And Elon Musk took on a battle for free speech right during the midst of this 2024 election and slightly before, and then subsequently purchased Twitter after they canned Jack Dorsey. And voila, enter the Twitter files, right? Matt Taibbi and other journalists that began to work with Musk to uncover all of the shenanigans that were going on there. And I guess my question is, was this a genius move by Elon Musk? Was it hubris? Was it courage? Did he know the impact? Was it just self-preservation? Was it the preservation of free speech? All of the above? I'm not sure. But somebody who's written the book on Elon Musk is our buddy Dennis Neal, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about it. Dennis Neal, welcome back, sir.
Hello, Rich. It's so good to talk to you, man. I just love how well you're doing in your show, and I have had such a great week with the debut this week on Tuesday of my book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. And for a guy who wants to save the world, boy, he sparks a certain amount of hate, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's quite the firebrand, and I want you to get into the book a little bit with us and tell us, what you think about his move, buying Twitter, and everything else that you've kind of gleaned in your research for this. Dennis Neal, again, is the host of the podcast, What's Bugging Me, and he's also the author of the brand new book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. It's out this week, so make sure you get a copy of it and check out his website, dennisneal.com. Now, Dennis Neal, what do you say? Is this brains or balls, what Elon Musk is doing?
It's both. There is this, let's remember, he first went to court trying to drop his bid for the company because after he first bid $44 billion, I think it was, $54 a share, all tech stocks took a plunge. So back in 2022, he tried to get out of it. And then this liberal judge in Delaware, a Chancery Court judge, says, no, screw it. You got to go through with it. So then he buys Twitter, X, and so he didn't want to do it, but he went ahead. And then once you're going to do it, though, as long as you're going to do it, then go balls out and dive in. And that's what he did. And all the media, Rich, said he's breaking Twitter. There's a book by that title. He's destroying Twitter. It's going to be nothing. And cut to 2 years later, and let's face it, X is the most important media platform and the freest media platform in the world. They just announced this week, Rich, Visa will start bankrolling all of the X payments. You can send your friend or some fan or some account you want, anyone, you can send them, or a bill pay, you're going to be able to send on X. And it's something he's had in mind for 20 years. So once he did buy it, he decided to go all in. Now, one thing that was less expected, though, is to side with Trump the way he did. And most CEOs of a publicly held company wouldn't do that. You're going to turn off half the audience when you hope to sell your products to 100% of the audience. And yet he did it because he was afraid for America. He's an adopted citizen.
And Dennis Neal, just to say, I don't think he lost half the audience. He probably lost just a fraction, if any.
Well, Trump won maybe 51% of the vote, but that means he lost 49% of it. And so
no, I don't mean Trump. I mean Musk.
But here Musk is aligning himself with Trump, and thereby, threatening his brand. But he did it because he really feared that we were truly disappearing into that woke mind virus, right? And he wanted to stop that from happening. And really, it's a double impact, right? Because number one was, oh, wow, this big billionaire is supporting this guy and getting on stage and raving for him. That's one thing. But when he freed up that platform X to no longer censor the voices of literally thousands of conservatives, thereby violating the First Amendment rights of millions of Americans who had a right to hear those conservatives, once that happened, I think he just decided, boom, he's got to get involved.
So fast forward to your research on this book and how you went about doing it, because I'm very curious to know. I know we spoke about it briefly when we met up in the city that time, but I want the audience to know. Tell us the level of research you went into to put this book together and what you had to do to get this information.
Well, I was lucky enough that the HarperCollins editor, Eric Nelson, called me with an idea. That's where the book came from. And it embarrasses me that I didn't think this up. I've been a journalist, a business journalist for 30 years, right? But he sent me this email and he said, might you know of some smart business writer somewhere who could do some kind of management book on Elon Musk? And I kind of raised my hand. I said, yeah, I could do that. And I spent a weekend on it, and I realized suddenly I came up with lessons that I feel he operates by, but lessons that we could use in our own life. And so I started diving in, and I did like research on the past 10 or 20 years of what he's been doing, everything he said, interviews. There's so much there now online at your fingertips. It's just amazing what you can find out. All the video, all the transcripts, and you really come.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Yeah, no, there was massive government interference in Twitter, but like Twitter welcomed it. That's important to all Twitter welcomed it. All Twitter was controlled by far left activists.
Yeah.
So they welcomed the government interference. They got paid by the government for it.
That's crazy. They got paid for their time, correct?
Yeah, they got paid millions of dollars for suppressing information.
So it's like build
and
time.
And a bunch of it was like flat out illegal. Like the FBI had this sort of magic portal into the Twitter system, but all of the communication in this portal was auto deleted after 2 weeks, which breaks federal FOIA laws. So we don't even know what was said because it was all deleted after 2 weeks.
That's Elon Musk and a conversation he had with Joe Rogan upon buying Twitter and releasing the Twitter files. And again, welcome back, America. Rich Valdez back live here. We had a little deep state interference. I didn't know who was who, where was what, but we're back. You say a few nice things about Elon Musk, and the deep staters come to get you and try to interrupt the airwaves. But we're back, and you can't keep a good man down. Dennis Neal is back with us. He's the host of the What's Bugging Me podcast, as well as the author of the book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. And Dennis, I want to pick up where we left off, where you were explaining what the process was like and who you interviewed to get the information for this terrific book.
Yeah. And so once I got the idea, thanks to the editor, Eric Nelson at HarperCollins, and I started researching Elon, I suddenly realized that you're not just doing the year or two of research, et cetera, into the guy. You're also, banking off your entire career. 30 years I've been interviewing and covering business and interviewing billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Larry Ellison. And so you're judging Elon in that pantheon. I mean, I interviewed a guy who went with Elon to Moscow 20 years ago. He squired Elon there to try to buy rockets from the Russians. Walter Isaacson tells the story in 2 paragraphs, famously where the Russian engineers spit on Elon's shoes. My guy, James Cantrell, though, goes into it deep, talks about Elon and his friend Adeo waking up terribly hungover the morning after when they'd gone to a bar that James Cantrell had told them not to go to. Of course, they ended up having to pay hundreds of dollars to Russian agents, and they were taking a lovely lady back to their hotel when it happened. It was a big setup. So there's some good stuff like that. But when you look at Elon, you start going after these lessons, and the lessons that guide him and that we could use to build a better life for ourselves. I actually finally, in all of my wooing of Elon, trying to interview him, trying to have a conversation with him, he responded to one email, to his private email address. And he merely said, cool, I'll pass. I think I pretty much have said all I have to say about everything. Of course, after that, he went on a torrent of public appearances campaigning for Trump, so he just didn't want to talk to me. But I'm dying to know, Rich, what he thinks of my 11 lessons, because they're really good. They capture him. He dreams huge and spends decades pursuing it. That's one of the lessons. He works harder than everyone else because most people are loafers. That's another lesson. He bets on himself, but he doubles down. When he made his first, $20-30 million score, you can live the rest of your life on that and stop right there. You're not even 30 yet. But he took half of it and bet it on a new company that he named X. He then merged it with PayPal, got kicked out of the company, never let go of that dream of X, the everything app, bought back X.com from PayPal, finally, 17 years later, and then ends up buying Twitter and renaming it X, and then just this week announces Visa-backed payments to anyone else on X. He's doing what he wanted to do 20 years ago, and he never let go of that site.
Pretty remarkable idea, and it's interesting to see how it's coming to fruition. Dennis Neal is our guest. He's the host of the podcast, What's Bugging Me, and the author of the new book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. Now, I want to get your take on some more practical political matters regarding Musk. He's become a firebrand in the media. I think he was a darling of the media, kind of like Trump, right? They liked him a lot until he liked Trump. And then all of a sudden, it was like, no more, no bueno. This guy's bad news. And I think the people now love him more than ever. I think a lot of people are big fans of Elon Musk, but the media not so much.
Yeah, the media just detest him, don't they? They fear him and they envy him. And it just, he gets the media to bare their claws by driving them crazy, and they show just how biased they are, how brutal they are, and that's exactly what Trump does. These two men share a lot of traits, and I think they came together because of that old saying, Rich, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And these two guys are hated by some of the same people. And they both share another trait. I feel like that we are raised to be modest, to detest egotism, to not want to brag on ourselves, and we are trained to dislike anyone who does. Well, these two guys wear their egos on their sleeve. They talk the talk, and then they walk the walk, and I think a lot of us resent them for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And tell me what you think about Doge. A lot of people are somewhat critical of what's going on with Doge and the plan to get there.
How can they possibly? How can anyone possibly be critical of an effort to cut back on spending the dollars that come solely from taxpayers' pockets? I mean, how can that ever be a bad thing? Number one. Number two, they say, he says he's going to cut spending by $2 trillion. He can't do that. He'll never cut it by $2 trillion. We now spend $7 trillion a year. If we can actually even cut it by half that, $1 trillion, it would be unbelievable. What Doge has done is, without actually yet achieving a single concrete thing, it has changed the conversation. It suddenly has government spending and trying to cut it among the biggest topics being discussed. I haven't heard any discussion of that in years, not in a decade or more. But finally, we're talking about it because of Doge. And if he doesn't get to $2 trillion, so be it. If he gets to half that, that's far, far more cuts than we ever would have had otherwise. And he and Trump both do that. You aim for huge, huge goals that you then miss, and the media says you missed it, but you got 150% farther than you ever would have otherwise.
You know, I that's exactly what I was telling somebody. I think I had a caller the other day with an interesting statement similar to that, and that's what I said. I said, look, you know, I don't care if he says 2 trillion, 3 trillion, whatever. The bottom line is it's going to be more than we've done in the past. And he felt like it was a disingenuous approach. My thinking is, you know, you shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you're amongst the stars, right?
There you go. That's exactly the approach to it. And my gosh, have you seen some of the details now coming out that they are unearthing from Doge? Did you see the headline? Actually, I don't even know if it made a headline because the liberal media would stay away from it. $50 million in condoms being sent to Gaza.
Yeah, I heard that headline. I've been having a blast with that headline all week.
Where the members of Hamas are trying to have as many babies as possible. Yeah, we'll send 50 million. I mean, that's just, I saw some other smarter person's post on X. They said, that's just money laundering. And then I saw someone else say, no, actually, you could use the condoms and turn them into some kind of bomb or something. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, what a waste. How ridiculous. And Rich, have you seen this new Caroline with a K? Caroline Leavitt, the new White House spokesman, the press secretary for Trump. She is a killer. She called him out on that, and I love what she's doing already. She's had a great week, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dennis Neal, I want you to hang out with me. I want to ask you a couple of more questions, and then we're going to move on. Folks, we're on with Dennis Neal, and then your calls are coming up, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Dennis Neal. He's the author of the book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. The book came out this week, and it's headed its way up the charts. Make sure you get 2 copies of the book, one for yourself, one to give away as a gift. Dennis Neal, let everybody that's listening know right now what the 2 biggest leadership lessons of genius from Elon Musk were that we can take away.
All right, I got 2 for you, Rich. And by the way, I dream of having the great one, Mark Levin, say stuff about me the way I just heard him say stuff about you. Oh, my gosh, I would take that happily to the grave. All right, well, first of all,
I don't feel too differently than you do, brother. Yeah. I'm grateful.
He dreams, yeah, so, all right, so first leadership lesson, dream huge. Your dreams aren't big enough, and be willing to spend a long time pursuing it, okay? And then the second one would be, it is better to launch and burn than it is never to launch at all. Celebrate failure. It's merely a necessary step on the way to huge success. Look at SpaceX, that amazing Starship, that hug of those big arms that managed to hold on to that thing as it came back to Earth. You know, he had failure after failure, explosion after explosion. The media made fun of him. You know, they celebrated all these, setbacks, but all of them were for a reason. All of them are merely another step towards success. Always keep going.
That's one of the lessons I learned from my dad. Never give up. And what would you say the last one would be?
Well, the first was dream huge, and then the second was it's
Don't
better to launch and burn. But the third is, you know what? Most people are just loafers. work harder than you ever have before. And that's what Elon does. And that's what we can do to live a better life.
Amen to that. I like the lessons. Dennis Neal. Now, Dennis, you host the podcast, What's Bugging Me? You've got this new book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. It's available at Amazon. Are you doing signed copies at DennisNeal.com? How do people get the autographed copy?
Oh, my gosh. I did that with George Papadopoulos, right? The Trump guy. I gave him like $75 for a $30 book, and he gave me a signed copy. I haven't set that up. If anyone wanted a signed copy and they wanted to send it to me and cover the cost of sending it back, I'd be happy to do it. I'd be proud to do it. I am so thrilled to have this book. I've written 3 other books for clients, but I've wanted to write a book of my own all of my life, Rich, since I was 14 years old when my dad died. And finally, I've done it. I'm so happy about it. And I'll happily sign anything for anybody, man. Just buy it. And I love that you asked him to send a copy to a friend, man. I love that.
Oh, you have to, right? And listen, I want you to tell everybody here how they can reach you. If they want to follow you on X or get in touch with you and listen to your podcast and request that book, where do they go?
Yeah, so the spelling of the Neal is Kneale, Dennis Neal, 2 N's in Dennis, at Dennis Neal on X. That is my preferred platform. Although email me if you want, man. Dennis.neal@gmail. Go ahead. I'd welcome it. Dying for some attention.
I love it. Keep up the good work, brother.
I love you, man. Have a glorious weekend.
You too, my man. We'll talk again really soon, and thanks for telling us about the book. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for the oxygen. I appreciate you.
You bet, brother. And folks, we're going to continue straight ahead with your calls, your thoughts, and a little bit of an update on Cuba, Colombia, and everything else that's going on in the world. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I hope that you are always on the radio because you're just a fantastic American and human being.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Trump this week announced that he is opening or expanding the migrant detention space at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for illegal aliens that are going to be deported. But there's other news about Cuba as well. And I want to talk about Cuba a little bit because Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's Cuban himself, he's put a sanction on Cuba by banning a Cuban company that handles money transfers to the island in a move to prevent the Cuban military from getting American money. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reversed on Friday the last-minute decision by former President Joe Biden to remove sanctions on Cuba's military companies and is now extending the list of banned entities to include the Cuban company that's secretly run by the Cuban military that handles money transfers from Cuban Americans to their families on the island. So just imagine, this is one more piece of extortion that they have, right? They use the Cuban Americans in the United States to send money back home to their family, and it's the military that's getting all the money on that. They don't take the money. They're getting the fees, is what I'm saying. So Western Union and other Miami-based agencies are partnering with the Cuban company called Orbit SA, and they're going to be forced to cut ties completely with this firm because of these sanctions. And I'm not sure what this is going to mean for people, but until the Cuban government finds a non-military company to provide the same service. Cuban Americans send millions of dollars back to their loved ones on the island through the remittance company every single year. So you've got Marco Rubio saying that he revoked Joe Biden's decision. This is Joe El Baboso Biden, and his decision to suspend this provision in the Helms-Burton Act that allowed Cuban Americans to sue these companies profiting from confiscated properties known as Title III. So it gets a little convoluted and into the weeds here. But ultimately, President Trump took decisive action on this on his very first day in office to keep Cuba on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. So Trump is taking a firm approach against Cuba. I don't think he's going to raid Cuba. I don't think there's going to be an invasion of Cuba. But I think he wants to send the message that we are taking a very firm position on Cuba. So I think that is a good thing. And what I have to say about this is I have a lot of friends that are Cuban. Of course, my parents both born in Puerto Rico, one in Santurce, one in Caguas. But my Cuban friends, like Cuban Anuel in West New York, or his stepdad, Jorge, his mom, Jacqueline, the whole family. I want to give a shout out to them because these guys work hard in America, right? One drives a truck. The other ones, they're busting their tails. These are good people, and they want to help their families back home. But they definitely don't want to help the Cuban regime. They definitely don't want to help the Communist Party. They don't want to help the Castroites, right? These are people that want to make America great again. Just like Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. Donald J. Trump, El Presidente. So to that I say, good job, Secretary Rubio. Keep up the pressure because this stuff is important. And just like that, the pressure works. We saw the president of Colombia on Monday saying, I am not taking a plane of illegal aliens from the United States. Trump put a little pressure, said, we'll put some tariffs on you. And they said, you know what? I'll send my own presidential airplane to pick up the Colombians and bring them back home. Today, he said, guess what? I want everybody in Colombia that's there illegally to come home. I didn't say it. President Petro said it. So anyway, folks, we're coming right back. Another action-packed hour the next time we convene. But until then, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. It's Friday night. We're live. We're national, just after 10 p.m. right now. And the phone number, 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. Happy to speak with you about just about anything. Ask me whatever you want if you'd like. I'd love to chat with you. And I'm going to try and keep you up to speed on what's going on in America at night. Now, first up, we have this plane crash in Philadelphia. They're claiming it is a small plane, so maybe not a huge jumbo jetliner, but a plane big enough to set multiple homes on fire. And this explosion was huge. We've got a report from the Philadelphia mayor. Listen to this.
We are asking everyone for their thoughts and prayers for all who may have been impacted and affected by this tragedy. Several dwellings and vehicles were also impacted. And so we are urging people, particularly those families who live in the surrounding area, to please stay home if possible. If you see any debris, and those who are conducting the investigations have repeated consistently, please do not touch anything because it is still an active investigation. Just call 911, please, if you see anything. Investigators and all of our federal, state, and local partners are working as expeditiously as possible during this very difficult time.
That, of course, is Mayor Sherelle Parker, City of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And breaking news just a little while ago, President Trump announcing that 6 hostages have been freed from Venezuela. after negotiations by the special envoy Rick Grenell, former ambassador Rick Grenell, against 6 hostages freed from Venezuela by negotiations from Ambassador Rick Grenell, the current envoy. So as we get more information on that, we'll bring it to you. That is from a post on President Trump's social media account on Truth Social. As we learn more about that, we will bring you more about that. Now, speaking of President Trump, Stephen Miller today weighing in, saying that the federal government is doing everything they have to do to remove multiple pronouns other than his and hers from federal documents. Listen to this.
Yes, I believe that the directive you're referring to is consistent with the President's Day 1 executive order on recognizing that there are only male and female sexes in the country and that, well, in the world, for all of humanity, but his authority is just on this country, and that your sex is your biological sex, that it's one and the same.
And President Trump also calling on Elon Musk for some support when it comes to astronauts. Listen to this.
President Trump is asking Elon Musk's SpaceX to bring back 2 American astronauts earlier than scheduled from the International Space Station. They've been stuck on that space station since June. Remember, after those problems with their Boeing Starliner capsule. This was in a post on Truth Social. President Trump said he asked Elon Musk and SpaceX to, quote, go get the 2 astronauts who he says, quote, have been virtually abandoned in space by the Biden administration. Trump adding Elon will soon be on his way. Good luck, Elon. In a post then on X, hours earlier, Musk confirming that he and SpaceX will do so. NASA announced plans last month to return both astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, no earlier than late March aboard a SpaceX capsule, which is docked at the ISS right now. But they aren't leaving right now because NASA's plan is to fly a new crew to the space station to replace them. So President Trump is essentially trying to speed up that timeline for a plan that's already in place, but then place blame on the Biden administration.
And that is a report from NBC News. And President Trump also commenting on DeepSeek and many other things, but announcing that he had to roll back what happened with Biden's disastrous approach to artificial intelligence. And this has been a linchpin, I think, of his administration. If you'll remember, during the campaign, he brought in a number of investors saying they wanted to invest in AI technology in the United States. You also have the Japanese bank and the Indian investor, and this is the future, right? I think as automation was a big deal in the last century, you had the conveyor belt, right? The assembly line from Henry Ford. I think this is the next revolutionary technology, AI. AI is reshaping things. And I know for many of us, we're thinking, oh, that's deep fakes. Or others, we're thinking, oh, these are filters on social media to make you look like something you're not. Give yourself a 6-pack in that beach photo or anything like that. But the reality is there's so many things that artificial intelligence can do. And many of them can be positive. And we've had a lot of conversations about that. And I think some of them can be negative too, right? Just like anything else, it's a double-edged sword. It depends on which way you swing it and who's wielding it. But ultimately, it's a fascinating conversation and one that I want to get into because I feel that the United States needs to remain at the helm of the ship. They have to make sure that we're headed towards due north when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence. Otherwise, we abdicate our leadership, just like Joe Biden abdicated our leadership on the world stage, where every dictator went kind of on their own, every radical fringe militant group went on their own, did their own thing. Everybody was operating in business for themselves. And not that I'm against people being entrepreneurial, but ultimately we don't want people disrupting the, I'll use the word the globalists use, the world order, right? I think we want to have peace, right? President Trump worked very hard to achieve peace in the Middle East and it, to a large degree, achieved that with multiple partners with the Abraham Accords. And Biden came in and in short time, right, really messed things up, sparking a multi-year long war, not only in the Middle East, but another one that he allowed to occur in Europe. And we're still paying the price for these things. So we need to make sure we don't lose the U.S. leadership on artificial intelligence. That's an area we can't abdicate. So I want to have a chat on that. I also want to talk about a couple other things, like the importance of knowing your boundaries when it comes to social media. Listen, I use social media to try to connect with the listeners, and it's a source of funny stuff for me. And it's kind of like, instead of watching TV, I kind of scroll on social media. It's a source of entertainment occasionally, but I'm definitely not addicted to it. I don't miss it. I do it really because I have to, more than because I want to. But some people are absolutely hooked. You go out to dinner with people and you'll see them, scrolling on their thing. Before they go to bed, they're what they call doom scrolling, looking at the news. So we're going to do some of that in the upcoming hour. But straight ahead, I want to have this AI conversation, plus all of your calls. It's Friday night. We're live. We're national. Here's the number, 833-482-5337. Rich Valdez, keeping you company live till midnight in some areas, 1 o'clock in others, 11 p.m. in a couple. And we got to work on that, don't we? Make sure you get your local radio station to carry the coveted third hour of the show. Anyway, amigos, we're going to come right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said, you have the most brilliant scientists in the world, and Seattle and various places, but Silicon Valley, they said, there's nobody like those people. This is very unusual when you hear a DeepSeek, when you hear somebody come up with something. We always have the ideas. We're always first. So I would say that's a positive. That could be very much a positive development. So instead of spending billions and billions, you'll spend less and you'll come up with hopefully the same solution. Under the Trump administration, we're going to unleash our tech companies and we're going to dominate the future like never before.
That is President Trump, and making this statement about DeepSeek, and I think he's 100% right. This was speaking to House Republicans at the Congressional Institute on Miami this Tuesday, and I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So we have to pay attention to what's going on with this DeepSeek stuff. And in order to understand that a little better, I want to talk to the CEO of Techlium. He's the founder and CEO of Techlium. Joining us live from Tokyo, Japan, Jason Ho. Welcome, sir.
Appreciate it. Happy to talk on your show about AI.
Thank you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on DeepSeek and President Trump's comments.
Definitely, Trump is absolutely correct. DeepSeek is a wake-up call to the people in the AI industry, but not as everyone think about the AI, but it's the time we have to examine the AI carefully.
What do you think of DeepSeek in particular? Is this dangerous? Is this fake news? Should we be really concerned? Your thoughts?
We have to look at both sides. Definitely, whatever Communist China says, we have to be skeptical. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble if we believe everything they say. But on the other hand, also have to be careful about those words from billionaires, because billionaires told us AI is extremely important. They need billions and billions of dollars of investment. It looks like there's a conflict because, and DeepSeek, it seems they need a very little money, but the billionaires in our nation, and supposedly we invented AI, we have the best talent in the world. Why we are underdog? This is ironic. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. So would you agree that it's incredibly important for the United States to maintain the position of leadership on artificial intelligence?
Actually, U.S. is way ahead of China on AI. The problem is the AI has been misused because AI has been the name to collect information without any legal consequences. If people tap into your phone, take your data, survey on you, this is a crime. But when they use AI to do it, it's free. It doesn't matter. They have no consequences. This is something we should change, or this is something I hope that President Trump can hear. Actually, we have a real AI. Doesn't need to do the data collection. Didn't need to use big database to perform data AI functions. Unfortunately, those billionaires, because they want to control, so they encourage those AI to collect information without the consequences. Therefore, we thought or we think AI only one type need a big data.
What else should we be concerned about? Because, obviously, in my line of work, I know there's been concern, and even people from the union that represents radio broadcasters, the SAG-AFTRA that represents actors as well, and the writers, they were very concerned about the use of artificial intelligence in writing scripts and things of that nature. There's some people in the entertainment business that are afraid that people might use AI to mimic their voice and try to recreate them in a fake way. But when it comes to the larger scheme, from the technology perspective, you as the CEO of Techlium, what are your concerns when you look at AI?
First, I want to declare the AI is not AI. The AI is for data collection. Back to 30, 40 years ago, we defined the AI as intelligent program should be able to maneuver, to experience, to understand how to resolve problems. But the AI today, actually, they run on big database. That database from the collection. That's why the artist, every talent, they would concern about because, and our work, their work, whoever invention is, and they are available over the internet. AI took those because there's no legal consequences. They merge and morph everything together, becoming something new. And actually, this is not AI creations. AI has no comprehension what we are asking for, and AI has no comprehension what they are providing our answer for. What we get, just a morph information, a merge information from the big database, which is free for those billionaires.
Now, Jason Ho, CEO of Techlium, I want to play a clip of President Trump speaking about AI from a different context. Listen to this.
Last week, I signed an order revoking Joe Biden's destructive artificial intelligence regulations so that AI companies can once again focus on being the best, not just being the most woke. And today and over the last couple of days, I've been reading about China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of AI and much less expensive method. And that's good because you don't have to spend this much money. I view that as a positive, as an asset. So I really think if it's fact and if it's true, and nobody really knows if it is, but I view that as a positive because you'll be doing that too. So you won't be spending as much and you'll get the same result, hopefully.
Do you agree with President Trump's comments here that this is going to be a cost-saving measure for many people?
I agree, because it's a wake-up call. Because there's no reason AI need to work on the big amount of data, and also there's no reason for us should allow those AI to collect our information without any limitations. And actually, there's another set of AI doesn't need the data. And back to 30 years ago, and we called the AI need the data, we call the data analytic. We don't call them AI, but the name changed. But now, actually, there's another set of AI available, which we are pushing. We doesn't need a preset of data. We don't need to do data collection, but we are more focused on the certain function we have to do. And I'm working with the Corps of Scientists in Washington, D.C. I really hope we can demonstrate this ability to show we're still much better than China, much better than other nations in AI technology.
The United States is currently ahead of the game. They're the leader in the AI race right now, as if it was an arms race. China is trying to catch up to us. Do you think that they're going to be able to catch up, or do you think we maintain our lead?
We are way ahead of China. If you talk about data collection, if we go the path and the big companies over the internet want us to think, definitely China is wonderful. But China is wonderful not because China is capable on AI, and they didn't tell you part like OpenAI, every source code is open, DeepSeek, and their source code is open. But there's something they didn't mention. Their database is not open. Why is that? OpenAI complained about the DeepSeek and stealing the database. The database, if it is not open, it's not free. It means something weird, something fishy about those databases.
Right.
I want to have AI doesn't use database. and doesn't invade our privacy, doesn't invade our intellect.
Makes sense to me. Jason Ho, CEO of Techlium, I want you to let everybody know how to find you and how they can follow your work.
And the company website is Techlium, TKLIUM.com. And I wrote a book about China's intention. That's the big plot. The website is the big plot, one word, .us.
All right, check that out. The deepplot.us. Jason Ho is the author and founder and CEO of Techlium. Jason Ho, I want to thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, sir. And we continue. Now we've got an update on a whole bunch of things that are happening in Washington, all across the country, from, you name it, from one side to the other. I mean, there's stuff going on all over. You've got a small plane that has crashed. Apparently, it's a medical assignment plane crashing near a shopping mall in Philadelphia. We talked about that. We'll give you an update on that as well. We're also going to talk about everything that's been going on today, plus your calls and more. Open phones across America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Keep it locked right here. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Have a track record now. People have heard you, and they know that in fact you've got the goods. You have the talent, and you have the ability to do a superb job.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This is really a big purge at the FBI that's happening right now, and there's also a huge purge happening at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, which handled a lot of those January 6 cases. We actually just got a memo in that shows that a number of those prosecutors who were brought in for these January 6 cases have been fired or ordered terminated. It will impact around 24 prosecutors. But at the FBI, we're still sort of getting a grasp on how big this will end up being, but it is a major push by the Trump administration to sort of overhaul the FBI. And, you know, a lot of people who are going to be impacted, I think, by these are individuals who weren't necessarily deeply involved in some of these cases, which Donald Trump obviously has some deep grievances about, including the Mar-a-Lago case and the other Jack Smith case in D.C. involving January 6th and Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. But this is a real, I think, significant moment in FBI history and is going to impact a lot of employees who, you know, have built their professional lives and done a lot of things outside of any minor involvement or, in some cases, more significant involvement they had in any of these cases against Donald Trump.
That is a report from the Fox News channel, and plenty going on there, right? And ultimately, this is, I think, concerning for a lot of people. Excuse me, NBC News correspondent Ryan Riley, forgive me, not Fox News. And you have to let people know, right? I think Trump, this is a good move for him. He says, hey, look, Cash is going to be in. He's going to be firing you guys soon, so you might as well leave. And it's up to them whether they decide to stay or get fired. That's his prerogative. Yeah, the fact that NBC News is even reporting this, I think, is kind of interesting because I don't even think it's big news. And I'll tell you why. I remember, I guess I was in high school, right? And it was a big story. President Clinton fired every single person because they didn't resign that was in a politically appointed position, right? I think in that particular example, they were all United States attorneys. And he fired every single one of them. And I'm guessing it was a political move because typically I suspect that there's some back channeling going on. Like, you know, what is he thinking of doing? When is he going to be nominating? Is he going to bring him in right away? And I'm guessing they were told nothing during the transition. That like, oh, no, just hang out, chill. You know, we'll figure it out. And, you know, day one he gets in, you're fired, thinking he's Donald Trump. So I think that's interesting. Trump's talking about firing 6 people. 6 people. He's president of the United States. He's got, I don't know, tens of thousands of people that are, you know, in his immediate leadership, not to mention everybody, 2 million people in the federal government. And And the news is making a big deal over 6 people. So I think that's the right thing to do. And he's got the right people on the job. As you know, we've had many of them that are in leadership there on this program. Tom Homan, we've had a number of times on the program. He's a very, very skilled operator. Who else that we've had on? Let me see. Tulsi Gabbard, who's there. We've had her on. A number of people. The point is, we know who these people are. We know that they're capable and they're hitting the ground running. So, yeah, good for him for even saying it. This way, at least he can say, look, I told them they should leave. This way, it's not a surprise when it happens on Monday. Right way to do it. I think you get a lot more with the a little bit of a push than you do with the pull, right? Use a little less energy, perhaps. And I also want to give you a little bit of a reaction. This is a couple of days ago, but Trump's immigration policies hitting hard all over the world. Right? You got the president of Colombia today making a statement saying, look, I am urging all Colombians that are in the United States illegally to please come back to Colombia. Now, this is following a statement he made a couple of days ago where he said, I won't pick anybody up. We're not accepting your plane. And then turned around and said, not only will I take your plane, but I'll send you my own plane, the presidential plane, to pick these people up. Changed his tune. And on top of that, you've got leaders, or at least former leaders of other countries, right? Uhuru Kenyatta is the former president of Kenya on the continent of Africa. And listen to his comments about President Trump's immigration policy.
People the other day crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves? Instead of crying, to jiulize, what are we going to do? Haya ametoa hiyo pesa, sasa tutafanya namna gani jameni? What are we going to do? Yeah? to support ourselves. Because nobody is going to continue holding out a hand there to give you. It is time for us to use our resources for the right things. We are the ones who are using them for the wrong things.
I love it. This guy should run for office in the U.S. I think he's onto something. And, you know, I think oftentimes just certain cultures have this perspective. It reminds me of my parents. And my parents were not from Kenya, but they were from Puerto Rico. And they were the lessons were the same, right? As he was saying, I could hear my parents telling me the same thing in Spanish. Y a ti que te importa eso, right? No se ha presentado, entremetido. Same thing he said, right? None of your business. Stop crying about this. Got nothing to do with you. Let them do what they got to do. He said he was going to do it, and he's doing it. That's it. Punto y final. Period. The end. So I think this is a very, very, very good thing. And that reaction is, you know, it's refreshing, right? It's not the one that we got from the president of Colombia, or even now the president of Cuba. President of Cuba is saying he doesn't like Trump's plan to put the criminal, illegal aliens that are being arrested, that their own country won't take them back, into detention in Gitmo on Guantanamo Bay. But guess what? What are you going to do? This is what we've been doing. Trump's just expanding it. And what other option do you have? You have to be able to send a message to people all over the world and say, look, this thing is over, right? You may have been in this country for a very long time, but we've reached our capacity. We can't do it anymore. And that's it. Now we have to alleviate some of the pressure. I mentioned this the other day, but I'll mention it again. I was driving not too long ago in, I forget the name of the town there. I think it's Palisades Park. It might be Leonia, but it's a Bergen County town. And on Broad Avenue over there, close to Route 46, I pulled up at a light. And when I did, I saw, 24 men hanging out on the corner, day laborers looking for work. I am never going to begrudge somebody that's looking to earn an honest day's pay. I'm not. But in this situation, I couldn't help but observe that it seems to me that the laws of economics are not in their favor. There were way too many of them hanging out there. There was more supply than there was demand. A friend of mine told me, he's like, yeah, I went over there. I needed some help with something in the house, and I needed somebody quick. I went over there, and I asked the guy to help me, and he was like, how much will you pay me for the day? And I responded to him that I would pay him, a decent wage. We could work it out. And he said, no, I'm not coming unless I get $350 for the day. So the guy already had his number. And again, I'm not going to begrudge him for having this number, but I am going to say, my friend told me, I don't make $350 a day all the time. So how am I going to pay him $350 a day? And I find it interesting that you're going to name your high price, and you're also going to work in a place where there's 23 other guys on the same corner as you. This is not going to work, right? There's not enough work to go around. They say that they're doing the work Americans won't do. They're not even doing the work that they are claiming to do. So I think we have an oversupply, and we don't need this labor force, right? It's just clear as day. And I would argue even further that we probably never needed it, right? This is just undercutting American labor that could likely earn more. And this is obviously not good for any American. We don't want to depress wages. We want to increase wages, right? We want everybody to make more money. And I want everybody to do well. But I can't sit here and say that, the American citizen who's looking for a job, let's put him on hold and bring somebody in. And the same goes for the H-1B visas, right? If the person from overseas is better, great. But if it's solely that they're cheaper, then that's something we've got to look at too. We can't consistently have Americans that are talented in an area and not allow them to even compete because they're competing against someone that isn't even on the same level because they're not citizens. They're not technically supposed to be here. Now, with the H-1B visas, we're allowing certain companies, I think, a little bit too much leeway, and there should be some reform there. But the whole thing is interesting. That's all I could tell you. There's a lot to discuss there. Anyway, coming up next, we're going to talk about this plane crash, give a little update on that. There's an update from NBC Philly reporting that the plane was carrying passengers that were Mexican nationals. So I'll give you the scoop on that when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, we have a little breaking news, a report from Alex Wang from NBC Philly. She's on the ground. We're going to join this live report in progress.
To reunite with their loved ones. This is going to be the place to go tonight. I can tell you also, we've been here before for other similar situations where the Red Cross has set up shelter here. So they're telling us that they're expecting to set up rather quickly. Again, the city just announced this to be the site not long ago, but we just saw a lot of those vehicles, including police, some of the Red Cross vehicles come through. So we're going to keep you updated as more people start to trickle in here at Samuel Fells High School. Again, it is on 5500 Langdon Street, a rather large parking lot. Langdon Street is just to my left here. There's only one entrance in, so if you are heading in this...
And that's Alex Wang, NBC News Philly. We'll tap in again in a little bit to give you an update on that. But what we know so far about this crash is that it was a medical jet carrying a little girl that was in need of life-saving treatment. Her and her family are from Mexico and came to the U.S. just to get this life-saving treatment. Very, very sad. The crash occurred around 6:30 p.m. And according to the FAA, it was a Learjet 55 that left Philadelphia Airport, was headed for Springfield, Branson, Missouri. And That's obviously the crash happened upon their takeoff. Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management is alerting residents in the area that roads are now closed. The mall and is also closed, and people are urged to stay away from the flames. And from the video that I'm seeing, I'm watching a live feed. There are pieces of the plane's fuselage with the medical symbols on it on the ground in the middle of the parking lot of this mall. I mean, and you can see the massive explosion still burning and glowing behind them. Really looks like a war zone. I mean, horrible. And this was not like a commuter jet like we saw yesterday. This is one of those small, like 15 passenger jets. Right now, everybody on the plane remains unaccounted for. And again, this was a pediatric patient, her mom, and 6 others aboard a medical jet that was on its way from Philadelphia to Missouri when it crashed. So I'm very happy to hear that. I mean, very sad to hear that. It's not happy at all. I was reading something that said happy, and I messed up there. Anyway, I hate to hear about little kids getting hurt. I want to go to your calls. Let's see what we have over here. Oh, look at this. I want to go to my buddy Gil in Manila, Philippines. Gil, welcome to the program.
Yes, I'd like to give a shout-out to a gentleman, Kevin Delaney from Westwood One, has just retired after 30 years. He's a great guy, and I hadn't heard anything about it, and became aware of his retirement a few days ago. In case he's listening, you've kept me informed, and you helped get me out of the slammer in Mexico in 1998 with Jim Bohannon, and I'm still very grateful. And,
that's sweet.
And one more thing.
Yes.
You mentioned Celia Cruz.
Yes.
The Queen of
Azúcar.
Yes. Yes. I would like to paraphrase her and say, my friend Rich Valdez tiene tumbao.
Lo tiene tumbao. Thank you, brother. Well, let me join you in echoing some sentiments of Kevin Delaney. And I haven't talked about this on the air, mainly because there's a bunch of voice work that Kevin Delaney's done, and I was hoping to put together a little montage and do like a little, a little farewell. And I need to have a talk with him because I was trying to have a call with him, but it was during inauguration, and I wasn't able to connect. So I really still haven't had a chance to say goodbye other than on text. But I did want to do that before we did that, and hoping he'd tune in to hear that. But yes, Kevin Delaney, quite a gentleman. You know, Kevin Delaney was a producer on the Larry King Show. Then he started moving up the ranks and moved off to a few different stations, and here at this organization, working with Jimbo over the years, and became the vice president of the News Talk division here at Westwood One, and did so impressively until his retirement and his 3 decades in service here. So Godspeed to you, Kevin Delaney. Enjoy your retirement. I think retirement is what people have always asked me. When I was young, I was like, I want to be retired. I think that is the best part of life. I had an uncle that was retired, and I remember watching him go everywhere. He went to Hawaii every year. He went everywhere with my aunt, and I thought, man, that's the life. So, yeah, kudos to all of you that are in retirement. That means you too, Gil. And Gil, my brother the other day sends me a text with a picture of a beauty queen from the Philippines. But the title that she'd won was somewhere in Tokyo, Japan. And he tells me, hey, this is my friend's wife's sister, and she's looking for a boyfriend. Are you interested? And I responded, my buddy Gil from Manila, Philippines says that the Philippine women are absolutely spectacular. I said, so sure, I'd love to meet her. So I don't know, if I end up with a Filipino wife, it's because of you, Gil.
Well, I can very highly recommend. You know, my wife and I have been together about 13 years. She's a nurse. She's nursed me back to health. I almost died here a year ago, and I'm on the mend. And actually, we're going to be in the States the last day of March. We've got our tickets, and I'm checking into the VA hospital in Phoenix.
Outstanding.
So-
Gil, I got to take a pause here, brother. God bless you and your wife. Thank you so much for your call and your shout out to Kevin Delaney on his retirement. And we will bring you that montage, that I promise to you. And coming right back, your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back to the phones we go with, I don't know, a minute and a half on the clock. This is going to be a tough one. Let's go to Tony. Tony, you got to keep it brief. WVMT, Vermont. Go for it.
Hey, listen, don't feel bad about the 25% tariffs. Trudeau put 41% on us for the last 9 years. He devalued our currency and made us pay through the nose for 9 years. So you Americans, you do what you think is right, and we are resolving people. We're tough. We've lived in minus 30 weather. We can do it. And, Rich, you know I
Yes,
love
sir.
you. And to those people that died in Washington and to that poor girl from Mexico, my heart goes out to all those people and my prayers. And I always love the Americans. And politics is one thing, but the lunch bucket people of this world that you're talking to, both in my country and in your country, we are the good ones.
Amen to that, brother. Tony in Montreal, listening on WVMT out of Vermont. Great call, brother. Happy Friday. Have a great week. Phones, open phones across America will continue. We're coming back with more. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Friday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It's 7 minutes past 11. Happy to be with you. Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And, of course, keeping you up to speed on everything that's happening in America at night. A little while ago, breaking story about a plane crash in Philadelphia. Sadly, this is a plane that went down. It was a medical jet carrying a little girl that was seeking life-saving care in the United States. She was on a medical plane, a very small medical plane, and at least 6 people were on board this medical jet that crashed in northeast Philadelphia near the Roosevelt Mall. The crash occurred, again, about 5 hours ago, and there's still fires actively going with, I guess, the jet fuel that spilled on multiple homes that are on fire. And NBC 10 has been on the ground with lots of reports. We have a report right now from a Man on the Street interview. Listen to this.
Everything just shook. I thought like the buildings fell or something. I look outside and then all you see is a huge explosion. I look outside and bam, you see all this fire. And then I started shaking and then I see a person running on fire and it was just...
So you saw a person on fire running, right?
Yeah.
Because I saw a video of that, but you actually saw that, right? So once again, are you running outside? Tell me what you're doing at that point.
I didn't know what to do. I was just there. I was just shook because it's like something crazy. You just see somebody on fire. Like that's something you see in a movie.
Unbelievable. One of the passengers he saw on fire, at least according to this one eyewitness. And this is very, very, it's horrible to hear, right? This poor girl came here to try and have a shot at life. came to the United States because we have the best health care, and this happens, right? Tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. So we'll keep you up to speed on this story and more. It's just been a rough week for aviation, and Godspeed to all these people. Really is a tough thing. Anyway, we will continue our national conversation. Let's go to the phones, shall we? We shall. I want to go to Paul. Paul's in Boise, Idaho. KBOI in the building. Paul, what's going on, brother?
Thanks for taking my call, Rich. It's 4 years until we hit the ballot again, and I don't think it's too early. I think things need to start being planned now. The Democrats are picking their DNC chairperson over this weekend, and that's going to kind of shape the way they're going to try to do things. They're going to have to dismantle and completely rebuild their idea of what they think America wants to vote for. They had their chance, and Trump just outplayed them. He outsmarted them in many different ways. And I see that the Dems have a good chance. I hate to say that, but it's true. They know how to do things in lockstep, and they stick together. And they stick like glue when they stick together. And, I think the big thing for Trump that he's got on his plate, and he's got a good grip on it, and that is the border. I think he's going to have a good, solid plan that's going to be in place before the next election when Vance goes up. I think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. That's who I think it is. I don't think he stands a chance with the way he's ran California into the ground.
Yeah.
But there's more to it, but I don't want to take up too much time. I think you can't start planning too early for this type of thing.
I agree with you. And listen, people are overreacting all over the place, right? I'm with you. I think right now it's going to be tough for a Democrat to get in. But, 4 years is a long way. And they're going to do their best to try and soften this administration in the eyes of the public so that they can make some gains in the midterm elections and have some control so that, Trump can't get his agenda through. So I think we've got to keep our eyes on the upcoming midterm elections in 2027, and we'll see where that goes. You're right. I think Gavin Newsom's young enough to continue to do the whole idea of running for president. I just think that's it seems far-fetched now, but you never know. There's still plenty to be said and done. Paul in Boise, thank you so much for your call. I want to go to Jeff in Akron, Ohio. Jeff is on WNIR. Jeff, go right ahead.
Thank you for taking my call, sir. I tried to call earlier, but I didn't realize Valdez was ended in a Z or an S instead of a Z. Anyways, so Tuesday I got a text message, an automated text message, voicemail from the school department. I have two children that go to local public schools here. I'm a single father of four, but two of them are in the local schools here. And then I read the transcript on Wednesday, and I've been doing some research since then to try to determine what's going on. But they locked down the school. Can I read this brief? I won't read the entire thing, but let me just...
Yeah, just make it really, really quick, or summarize it.
Dear parents and families, this is a message to inform you that blank school experimented a brief precautionary lockdown today due to reports of nearby immigration and customs enforcement ICE activity. No ICE agents entered the school. I don't need to read the rest of it. But I did since then, after calling the school department, DHS, ICE, local senator, or senator for this area, this district, this state, and not gotten any response about it. But I did speak with a school employee that was there because they're trying to play it off like there's an ICE Force security company that's in the area. A retired military guy got a security company, and it wasn't him, but they're trying to put it off on that. But apparently, according to the school employee, that there was an ICE, the ICE was there, and they were doing an investigation. They were on the property. They were not allowed in the school. And now, according to the employee I spoke with, there's a new protocol on how to handle the situation. And basically, if they don't have a warrant, don't let them in. I have a feeling that they had a warrant. if a federal agency or a law enforcement agency goes to my children's school that's already locked down anyways, and they have on-duty police officers there to begin with, school's already locked down, and if a federal agency in particular shows up at my school looking for potentially a staff member, or maybe this is at a high school, maybe an elderly, a 17-year-old kid who has molested, raped, murdered someone, and he's in my children's school, I am all for them going in there and getting them. Otherwise, I don't want.
Yeah, I think that's likely not going to happen. From the interviews that I've conducted with Tom Homan and others, specifically Tom Homan, he made it real clear to me, because I said, look, it's going to be difficult. And he said, well, that's why we're not going to do it that way. He said, we're going to wait for them to come to us. And, whoever goes in that school, they got to come out and you grab them on the way out. So I doubt very much if they did have to go into school that they would actually go into the school. And there were some reports last week that ICE was visiting a school and the superintendent or deputy superintendent was freaking out about it. And we played the audio and it turned out she was wrong. There was no ICE. Nobody was doing anything. And ultimately, it was the U.S. Secret Service that was there investigating a threat on a public official, and they needed to speak with somebody in the school. Had nothing to do with immigration or ICE or anything like that. So I think there's a lot of misinformation going around, a lot of propaganda as well, where people are just making stuff up to create fear. And I only know this. I had lunch today with a friend of mine, and his girlfriend is a switchboard operator at a school in New Jersey. And she said all day long the phones at the school were ringing because parents were afraid of what's going on with ICE in their school. Should I send my kid to school? So clearly there's a degree of fear going on with people that know that they're in the country illegally and they don't want to get deported, and they're double checking. They're crossing their T's and they're dotting their I's. Jeff in Akron, Ohio, thanks for the update on that. Folks, we're coming right back. More calls plus some conversation on social media addiction. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I just have to thank you for doing what you do every night and opening up that mic and hearing from Americans, letting them express their opinions, and really giving people a voice. So God bless you for what you're doing, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
People are going to come with different propensities for addiction to any drug, and that's true for social media too. Some people will have no problem using it in moderation or using it in a way that's adaptive, and other people will immediately get sucked in. And the key thing about getting addicted is when it's happening, we nobody who's getting addicted thinks they're getting addicted, right? Let's face it. It's only after the fact that we go, whoops, what was that about?
Well, remember texting and driving? There were all these books about texting and driving, how terrible it was.
Yeah.
Even the governments have largely given up. You see these billboards,
terrifying.
Like don't text and drive, or any text can wait, or not worth dying for.
Right.
But everybody's texting and driving.
Right. And if you look at young people today, teenagers, they're basically cybernetically enhanced. That the phone is there, it's like they're talking to you and texting 12 friends at the same time. And there's no stopping it.
There's no stopping it. She's talking about addiction there. And this is a podcast clip. And I want to get into this conversation because I think it's an important conversation to have. People that are addicted to social media. And these people could be young, they could be old. I think it's probably more prevalent with the younger people. But what do I know? That's why I want to bring in one of the pros on this. Dr. Mark Mayfield is the director of practice and ministry development, as well as the editor of Marriage and Family. It's a Christian journal. And he's with the American Association of Christian Counselors. Dr. Mayfield also wrote a professional counseling workbook for clinicians titled Loneliness, A Guide to Flourish in Community. And you can get that wherever that's available. And I want to welcome him here to talk about social media addiction from the mental health perspective. Dr. Mark Mayfield, welcome.
Hey, Rich. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So when we talk about this social media addiction, for me, my mind immediately goes to young people, because for many of them, this has become a big part of their lives. And for people at least my age and older, and I'm 46, this is a thing, it's kind of a side thing you do, right? It's not the main thing you do, but I think for some young people, it is the main thing they do. Am I right on that, or am I wrong, or is it across the board people are addicted?
I think it's interesting. I think it's across the board, to be honest. And, we are, I'm right around the same age as you, and I think we are more like digital immigrants, and these kids are digital natives, and so you can remember what it's like not to have a device in our hand growing up, going outside and playing until the lights come on and the sun goes down. And these kids, I think, unless there's boundaries put around it, this becomes just a life suck, and it takes up their time to the point where they are losing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day on this stuff.
So how do you identify this? If parents are watching their kids, or if kids are watching their parents, whomever might be affected by this, a wife watching her spouse, how do they determine, that, okay, I think so-and-so has a problem with this? What are some of those symptoms?
Well, yeah, it's just like anything else, addiction-wise or in our mental health world, that if it starts to impede on normal life issues, relational connectedness, emotional reactivity, grades, sleep, and those are the things that we look for when we're diagnosing mental health disorders or looking for an addiction. It's got to be disruptive to life. And many people will say, well, it's just become a part of life, like the clip you played ahead of time, that they're kind of cybernetically inclined, I think is what she said. It's become a third appendage, but we're seeing it's affecting relational connectedness. And in fact, I think it's exacerbating this loneliness epidemic that we've been talking about.
So what's your recommendation on how to get beyond this? If somebody says, oh my gosh, I think somebody in my family, they're always glued to this thing, they're unhinged when they're not on it, how do they seek help?
Well, I think it's a multifaceted answer. And I think for parents that are having young kids, it's really thinking ahead of time, going, what is my culture of tech at home? How are we going to introduce this to our kids? It's not going away. We can't stick our heads in the sand and not do anything about it. We've got to figure out how to make this appropriate, and how do we set boundaries with our kids. So for a young family that's thinking about what do we want this to look like? How are we going to set boundaries around this now? For older families with older kids in it, it becomes a lot more difficult because it is that addictive piece. And it sounds really harsh calling it an addiction, but that's what it is. You go without it, you need it. You're reaching for it, in your pocket. I mean, we do that as adults too. But then part of it is that they lose just gaps of time on it. And so I really tell parents with older teenagers to draw them into the conversation, because these teenagers are not stupid. They recognize this is not healthy. And I think a stat that I'm going to get wrong, but is somewhere in the 40 to 55, 60% of teenagers recognize that this is not okay, and they want to change, but they can't. And that's part of the addiction piece. So they're looking for us as adults and to help them with it.
Very interesting stuff. Now, talk to me about this workbook that you've put together for clinicians, Loneliness, A Guide to Flourishing Community. I think this is an area, and I'm not sure the exact perspective you're taking on your book, but I know that I think community is something that most people are generally lacking. I think we've become a more isolated society, and I'm talking about even before COVID, and I think COVID kind of put the nail in the isolation coffin, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the book was written, it's written for clinicians, but it's also written for people that want to do their own kind of journey out of loneliness. And I really encourage people to take a risk and do it like in a small group at a church, or have somebody that's a small group leader go, hey, let's do this, and we'll do it together, we'll bring people together, because it's helping people look to, how did I get here? What were the catalysts to get me to this point of isolation and loneliness? What do I need to rearrange? What do I need to really make a priority as I walk out of it? And how do I do that with people around me? And you're right. I mean, COVID was that, I think, that nail in the coffin for isolation and loneliness. And we, as believers, are designed to be connected. As humans in general, we're designed to be connected and be in relationship. And that's not over screens. That's face-to-face in proximity with each other. And so this book and all the books in our workbook series are designed to do together.
Well, it sounds really interesting. Let everybody know how they can get a copy of the book and learn more about the work you're doing, Dr. Mayfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AACC.net, American Association of Christian Counselors, AACC.net, and click on our store, and you can look at all the workbooks we've got, all the resources we have. There's a lot of training resources there as well for lay people, for counselors, coaches, pastors. Is a great place to just engage in maybe your own desire to learn and to help.
Outstanding. Dr. Mark Mayfield, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
You bet. And amigos, we continue with the rest of your calls and more. The phone number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And a couple other tidbits that I've got for you before we wrap up. So don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back.
Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, you're a true patriot and a Latino voice. We need more of you in America. And keep up your good work, Rich.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
With efforts to reduce the federal workforce, whether it's offering what we've called the buyout package or other efforts, do you have any concerns that there will be employees broadly across the federal government who might take that up? And they're a part of the many different ways that agencies protect the public, from food inspections to water safety to the air traffic
everybody's
controls.
replaceable, and we'll get very good people to replace them if it turns out to be more than we thought. It could be a lot, it could be a little, we don't know, but we'd love to have them leave. We're trying to remember this. We want them to go into the private sector. It's our dream to have everybody almost working in the private sector, not in the public sector. We have many people, very few people came to work. They were, it started more or less with COVID, but actually even before COVID. But it started with the COVID. They didn't come back. And then Biden let them get away with murder. And we had a federal workforce, like 4% coming into the office. And that just doesn't work. People can say it does, but it doesn't work. You have to be unified in a group in the office. It's just, it was crazy. You don't know what they're doing. And then at some point, we may ask them to certify that they didn't have two jobs, meaning were they really getting a check from us, the government, and then were they also working a second job and a third job and, on government time? And many of them will say that they did, which is not legal, but it's a problem. It's a problem. No, we want to get that out. We want to clean it out. People have been trying to reduce federal government now for 40 years, 45 years, and they haven't been able to do it. And this is a way of doing it, I think, very nicely. It's sort of a buyout, too. I think we're treating people very good. But people don't come to the office. They won't have a job starting on that very special date. So we'll see how that works out. I mean, nobody knows how that's going to turn out. Everybody might show up to the office and maybe a large number won't show up. But if they don't show up, we've accomplished a very serious goal. We're trying to reduce government.
That is President Trump earlier saying we have to reduce the size of government. And listen, anybody who's listened to me for any amount of time, that's been my position since I've been old enough to vote. But not everybody believes in shrinking the size of government. Some people think government play a major role in being your daddy and providing for you and paying your bills and doing stuff that, in my opinion, you should be doing for yourself. And I understand that position. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But I want to get your thoughts on this. Should we shrink the size of government? Let's find out from you all, the American people. 833-4-Valdez, 833-482-5337. Let's go to Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Check in with Debbie. Debbie, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Well, hello. How are you
Hola.
tonight, Rich?
I am wonderful, thank you. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there. Hey, I just had a couple comments about the way people do things. Like in my neighborhood down here in Ohio, I hear often the Trump something syndrome. The Trump what was it? Trump something syndrome.
Trump derangement system, TDS.
Yes. Thank you. That's what I'm calling. Trump derangement syndrome, meaning if you don't agree with him, you're Trump deranged or something's wrong with you. Now, I
don't think that's really it, but go ahead.
But I listen to the station a lot, and I think I need to come up with another term called Trump rearranged disorder.
Mm-hmm. Tell us more about that.
Rearranged disorder, because, man, these people, they will say anything to put him like to the top. To me, that's a disorder. So I'm kind of playing the middle. I'm playing the middle. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. There needs to be another word called Trump rearranged disorder. All right.
Now, what are we rearranging?
What do you mean? Oh, because they're rearranging everything he says to make it look good.
Well, let's talk about why it doesn't look good. I just played a clip. Tell me, what do you think about what he said about shrinking the size of government and getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse within the federal government?
Oh, well, no. Now, what could be wrong about that?
Exactly.
That sounds great, doesn't it?
Right, but now
great.
if I were a critic of President Trump's, I would immediately change that around to sound like this. If I were a newscaster, it would go like this. And in news today, President Trump announcing yet more draconian measures to take away Social Security from senior citizens, to take the food right out of the mouths of welfare moms and their children. And then people freak out and they think he's a monster. But he's really talking about shrinking the size of government. So I think we have to be educated enough to realize what's really happening here and who has this responsibility to do these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, do you rely on the government for your lifestyle? Pretty sure you work, right? I said, do you rely on the government for your lifestyle, or do you work?
No, I'm retired, actually.
There you go. So you spent the whole life working so that you could retire.
Yes,
and
I did.
Exactly, and you earned that.
And a hell of a life. A
exactly.
tough job, 35 years. 35
congratulations.
years in the same job.
Earlier, I was saying that that's what I want to be when I grow up, retired, so that I could enjoy life and not have to do the grind every day. So I think, it flies in the face of people like yourself that have worked hard, put money into their retirement, to their pension, whatever and what have you, building a life, paying off a house, whatever it is, helping their kids, where someone, maybe even someone from another country, comes here and now is getting more than you've ever gotten, right? I'm sure you've never stayed for 6 months at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. I know I've never done that, but yet there's a bunch of people that just got to this country that are doing that, and it's being paid for by you and me, the taxpayer, at the tune of $6,000 a room per month. That's insane.
Well, you know what you get to do when you retire, Rich?
What's that?
You want to know?
I'd love to.
You have grandbabies and you babysit them.
I love that plan.
That's what you do. Babysit them for free, so that because my kids can't afford daycare. That's what you do.
Who can afford daycare? I know rich people who complain about daycare. It's extraordinarily expensive. But you're right, Debbie. This is what life is about, right? You're able to give back to your family and help and do the right thing. And this Trump derangement system, or what you're calling this Trump rearrangement disorder, whichever way you want to call it, I think ultimately it's like the old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide for our family. And if giving more money to the government prevents you from being able to take your grandbabies out for ice cream, or take them to Disney, or take them wherever you want to take them, because you're losing more and more of your money every time you get your pension check, because the government's taking more to give more money away because of the Democrats' policies, then at some point we have to draw the line and say, look, I've got to put my family before I put the families of other people who are just coming to this country and not even coming legally. Doesn't that make sense?
I'm there every day babysitting them, save my kids money because they can't afford the daycare.
Yeah,
But
I hear that.
they're working hard. My kids work hard. They work hard.
Well, God bless you and your children. Debbie, thank you for the call. And folks, we continue with the rest of your thoughts and more straight ahead, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you live until midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas. And I want to take a moment to thank you all, the listeners of this program, because we are now approaching our 500th nationally syndicated broadcast. And that's fantastic. And honestly, it was before that. Just we hadn't renamed the show America at Night. It was still the Jim Bohannon Show for several months. So honestly, we've surpassed the number of 500. But under the new name, which we launched in 2023, that's where we are. I think we're at episode number 500. And it's a real joy to be able to celebrate that with you all. And I'll be gathering with some of our local listeners in the area and some of my supporters and friends and family at a gathering in New Jersey in Bergen County tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to that. And if anybody's in that area and wants to come, feel free. It's at Matthias Jewelers on Route 4. But I want to, again, just take a moment to acknowledge you all, right? The American people, the listeners of this program, so many of you that call in and do so faithfully and add to the fabric of this program, making it interactive and making it, quite frankly, not only likely the most listened to program in our time slot, given the amount of affiliates that we have and the amount of stations that carry us, but also the most interactive. You know, being a live show and being on at this hour is, to me, an honest to God blessing, because we're giving you everything as it's happening in real time, and we're getting your reaction to it. Nobody's doing it. And it's a real joy, honestly, to do it. Whether we're talking about morbid things like a little girl right here in Philly that, had this plane crash, and it's horrible to talk about, but it adds to your knowledge as the American people, right? Everybody's now more informed of what's going on. And I think that's what we have to be. We have to be, what Reagan said, informed patriots. If we're not informed patriots, we're not participating in our civic duty to the degree that we should. So to you all, the listeners, I owe a debt of gratitude. Now, I want to continue because there's a couple of crazy clips that I want to play here. There's UFC fighter named Bryce Mitchell. And this seems to be a growing problem. But this guy, Bryce Mitchell, he's on a podcast called the Arkan Sanity Podcast. And he makes some interesting comments about Hitler that, not the first time I've heard these. Listen to this.
Hitler, hell and the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education indoctrination. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy to go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids. They were queering out the women. They were queering out the dudes. They were, you know what her first tranny surgery ever was? Happened to be in Germany before Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was? Queer books. Hitler burned queer books because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers destroying his nation. They can't produce children.
Wow. That was a mouthful. And again, this is an interesting thing, right? This is so reminiscent to me of people that want to sing the praises of Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro is part of a revolution, goes against some other dictator to be the new dictator, claiming to be a social justice warrior, right? And in doing so, you know, I mean, he lies his butt off. And when he gets in, people are saying, oh my gosh, but look at all the good things that he brought to Cuba. Look at the literacy rate. The literacy rate went up because Castro was forcing people to learn how to read so that they could be indoctrinated by the books that he wanted them to read. And you can spin the facts however you want to tell your story. At the end of the day, if Hitler and the general we were talking about the other night, what was his name, Kemmler, if Hitler and the guy who designed Auschwitz, if these guys could literally gas people, burn people, execute them into mass graves, don't tell me that stopping a transgender surgery is a feather in this guy's cap, right? Doesn't make him any less of a monster, Mr. Bryce Mitchell. But it's not the first person that's made these comments, right? There was another guy, Zanu. He's, I think, out of the continent of Africa. This is a black man from Africa making an interestingly similar comment. Listen to this.
You're saying black folks created that name white supremacy.
That's correct. From Africa, because we are just amazed by the things they've done. Well, we describe them always by inventions. That's all. They can command water from far away through tubes into their bedrooms. We can even fetch a bucket of water from the next lake. You will be drowned. They can put electricity. We never had one in Africa. They have airplanes fly over us. It's amazing. Everything they've done is the reason my people say these people are superior, not because of slavery. They came to colonize us, and they brought things we have never seen before. They gave a king a mirror, and he was dancing and sold his people away. They brought guns we have never seen, boom, and killed somebody right away. You know what they used to do in the Congo?
Right.
They put dynamite in the rocks, and then they hide the switch. And then when they point their finger, it go boom. And the Congolese till today, they call the white man kiboom, the sound of the dynamite. And then they go down, and they go like this. If they're not superior, why do you see every picture when the white men arrive in Africa, we bow into them? We have never seen a gun kill a human being. We have never seen a mirror. We have never seen a radio tune in and somebody speaking from England, the Queen's voice. So for us, all these things, these people must be really superior and close to God. They used to have a joke in Ghana that when God said, let's pray, the white man opened his eyes. The black people were covering his eyes. So the white man saw how God created the world. That's why they are so good at what they do. And I'm telling you, these are folklores from which we grew up. If anyone told you that white people came to Africa to tell us they're superior, it's a lie. They never said that.
That is a black man. So you just heard from a white man and a black man giving you two different perspectives that are seemingly similar in many ways, right? That this idea of white supremacy is a good thing is what they're saying. I don't allege that. They are. And I think it's, again, this is, I'm going to say interesting. I'm going to say misunderstood. And I'll give you my thoughts on that when we come back from the break, as well as Dana White, the head of UFC, responding to Bryce Mitchell. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
And I'm sure you guys heard what Bryce Mitchell said. If you haven't, he said some probably, I've heard a lot of dumb, ignorant in my day, but this one's probably the worst. When you talk about Hitler, he's responsible for the death of 6 million Jews and he tried to completely eliminate a race of people. World War II was the deadliest war in history. 15 million military deaths, 45 million civilians, and 25 million soldiers were killed in World War II. Second of all, Hitler is one of the most disgusting and evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth. And anyone that even tries to take an opposing position is a moron. That's the problem with the internet and social media. You provide a platform for a lot of dumb, ignorant people. We've obviously reached out to Bryce, and when we read what he said and let him know how we feel about it, we're beyond disgusted.
Dana White disgusted at Bryce Mitchell's comments. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were. But this is an increasingly more interesting commentary because it's becoming more popular. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. People loving and defending Nazis is on the rise. And it's honestly, in my opinion, it all comes from Russia. The Russians love this propaganda. They realize that it's the best way to tribalize the Americans is to get them to hate immorality like transgenderism and gayness and things like that, and get them to idolize the people that once hated it. And it's weak thinking, in my opinion. Just because it's bad and somebody else thinks it's bad doesn't mean that guy's good for thinking this is bad. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.